lovely day, and we like to say we hope it's here to stay.
Got it.
Got it.
So strange, deciding how to feel about it. Such strange emotion, standing there beside it. I'm home. Moonlight on the river, saying my goodbyes. Oh, there's moonlight on the river. Everybody dies. So strange, deciding how I feel about you. Like I ain't used going on without you. I'm home. Moonlight on the river, saying my goodbye. Home, there's moonlight on the river. Everybody dies. Home, there's moonlight on the river, saying my goodbye. I'm home. There's moonlight on the river. Everybody dies. Everybody dies.
I know there's a lot of you guys in the audience are content creators, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Do you find it hard to create new content?
Original, new content.
We've been doing this rodeo for a while, and we're already running out of content.
Yeah. Well, speaking of new content, okay, we got a new show coming out. I have a new show coming out, and whoever is on it has it. We're having a new show coming out where we're just gonna sit here and we're gonna make music live for you guys. We're gonna
Live music, people.
That's right. We're gonna get some instruments in here, some basic stuff, because it's not a very big room, and we're just gonna spend an hour or whatever just creating something from the ground up. We might do a cover, or we might do something original. We might do something silly. So stay tuned for that. That'll come at you in the next month or so, hopefully, when I get the time, because I'm also a bit of a busy boy.
Absolutely. Guys, this is new and groundbreaking. We've never done anything like this before.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. We're gonna just make stuff, and you're gonna hear the very ground level. You're gonna hear start to finish.
Right.
Right.
You're going to see the music making process and how diverse and different it is depending on the song, depending on the person.
Of course. And we'll probably do a few more of those sick ass remixes that you heard at the beginning of this show.
Yeah. That was on the spot. There was no planning beforehand for that.
No, we just started that. Okay, so the thing is, I saw on my Spotify that a friend of mine was listening to Moonlight on the River by Mac DeMarco.
Mackius DeMarcois.
Yeah, of my 3 friends on Spotify, I picked that one. And in any case, it was good. We put on Moonlight by the River, or Moonlight on the River, whatever. And then we have this guy over here, this Echo Man, and this very big
Echo Boy,
good, very lovely Echo Boy, and we put him on, and it was good. So. We'll probably do it again.
Yeah. Well, speaking of effects, last night was open mic night.
Shit.
Which is a big deal. We played. You guys, you and Allie played.
Yeah, we played.
And the final act, Nelly's Echo, had he had a pedal.
Man, that thing was
pedal.
So cool.
It was it was a harmonizer.
Yeah, it was just basically taking his vocal and playing it back through the 5th degree, and. Damn, that shit was awesome.
Not only that, that's probably one of the best harmonizers I've ever heard.
Sounds good.
Because I looked around the room. I was like, okay, who's backing for this guy? What's going on?
And I think most of the people in the audience probably were really confused.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he had the pedal right behind the monitor, so the only reason we could see it is because we were all the way off to the right.
Right.
But I feel like most people in the audience wouldn't have been able to see the pedal, and also probably wouldn't know that you would use a pedal for something like that.
Yeah.
I've never seen a harmonizer before. I've heard of them, but I've never.
Yeah, they're cool. It's really hard for them to sound good. Any kind of harmonizing or vocal pedal to make it sound natural, it's kind of like a crapshoot. But that sounded good.
My guess is that it's just singing the 5th, which is you can pretty much guarantee that if you always sing the 5th, you'll always be in harmony.
And it'll sound good every time.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
Whereas with the 3rd, major, minor...
Yeah, you're getting a little bit of
suspended, and you don't want to get a 3rd. You never know what you're going to get.
Right. I meant to ask him what that pedal was. I didn't see it up close. I know Zaki was interested because he does a lot of harmonizing.
I'm sure it would be easy to find.
Yeah, probably.
So Nelly's Echo, this guy... He was hired by the school to perform at open mic night as a gig for him. His claim to fame is that he was on The Voice one time.
Season 3.
Season 3. And anyway, he was really good. He's a great performer, and also he's really funny. And not only is he a great singer and a great musician, but he is also working the crowd and stuff.
Yeah.
Really cool guy.
His message was wholesome too. It was message. A lot of feel good. I want you coming away feeling happy and feeling good about yourself and feeling good about what you're doing.
Nothing too negative, and overall really cool guy. We talked to him after the show.
Yeah.
And so if you're interested in, I'm not sure what most of his music I guess I'm not sure what his genre really is. It's like
Mhm.
it's like folky.
It's a little bit R&B, a little bit of folk, a little bit of like, like that Jason Mraz kind of.
Yeah,
like
Olivia said that he reminded her of Jack Johnson.
Jack Johnson.
So maybe
Yeah.
there's a bit of that.
Oh, right, and
some soul
we gotta
stuff.
shout out Olivia Faribault.
Yeah, she
Or
was
is it
really good
Faribault?
too. Faribault.
Yeah.
I don't know how do you say that her name,
Yeah.
but she was also
She was
really good.
great.
And
Excellent
her
voice.
is incredible.
When she sang X's and O's, I honestly
Yeah.
couldn't tell the difference between her and the recording at some points. It was
really
really
good.
dang close.
She's got one of those voices that sort of breaks up at the top, and so like, I don't know. It sounds really natural, and it sounds
Yeah.
really.
And what's nice about that vocal
Gritty.
break too is if maybe you can't reach that note, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. She was like a little flat on some of them, and it's like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
Doesn't make a
because
difference.
It's like breaking up in such a pleasing way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not one to judge anybody singing. I sang last night, and I was super nervous, so my voice was probably super shaky. I wasn't even listening to myself.
You were fine. You sounded great.
Thanks.
Yeah. No, I was worried for both of you guys just because when I thought about open mic night, I was not thinking about a stage with one spotlight. I was
Yeah.
thinking of, for some reason, I was thinking of what we were
bit
doing.
more, yeah,
like
bit more-
everybody's talking. and it's like,
Yeah.
I
I thought that for a little while too, and then I started to realize like, oh shit.
yeah. But no, it like you came through really well. The harmonies in I think it was the second song you guys did.
Oh yeah.
The second, the Radiohead one.
Yeah.
That one, the harmonies were good.
Yeah. So not to throw Ali under the bus, but she was supposed to sing like I was singing lead in that song for
Mhm.
most of it, and she was supposed to sing a harmony there. But to be fair, playing her guitar part and singing is really difficult. I've
Mhm.
tried it and I can't do it. So and we didn't have enough practice to get that part through.
Right. Not only that,
So-
but
it
she's
ended
just
up being
relearning
really good.
guitar, right?
Yeah, she just started learning guitar.
Yeah.
So I think overall that performance came out really well.
I forgot how wonderful acoustic guitars are. Like like when someone like can play an acoustic. Oh my God, Olivia was.
Yeah.
The
she
sound
was
of that
fucking jamming.
Dreadnought was unbelievable.
Yeah, and the thing is that I've recently started playing my acoustic guitar way more. I
Mhm.
haven't even touched my Strat other than the other day. I just like touched it to play it for like a minute.
Yeah.
But other than that, I haven't touched it in like weeks because I've been playing only my acoustic guitar, and
Mhm.
I'm sort of rediscovering like how much fun it is.
Well, the thing about the acoustic too is once you can do what you want on the acoustic, get the sounds out of it you want to.
Yeah.
If you translate that to an electric,
Yeah,
oh, it sounds incredible too.
and
you know?
acoustic electrics always sound really good.
Oh,
Piezo
that
pickups
Godin.
are so
Oh
nice.
my God.
Yeah, and like even her plugged in, and I think my acoustic guitar plugged in sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you could play an acoustic and it sounds down to earth and it sounds like cool and stuff. But then when you plug that in, and the piezo, it's like super biting, and it's
Mhm.
like it's a whole different sound.
Definitely.
It's a really cool sound.
Totally different. Did you see what she was playing? Was it a
I think it was a
Taylor?
Taylor.
Okay.
Yeah, looks
That's
like a
what I
Taylor.
thought. Yeah.
It
And
sounded
then
like a Taylor.
it did sound like a Taylor for sure. And then Nelly had a Godin, and those things are gorgeous.
Yeah. Or I guess I couldn't tell the difference between a Taylor and a Mitchell, but it was definitely one of the two.
I think it was a Taylor for sure. And then, you know what I've always wanted to play? You ever heard of Ovation?
It sounds really familiar.
They make those
Gotta
like
look it up.
flat top, semi hollow or fully hollow guitars with the weird wing F hole.
Hold up, let me. Oh, with the wing. Yep. All right, so we're looking at it right now. This guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen.
I
that,
wouldn't.
dude.
I wouldn't get the wing, personally. There are different ones without wings on them.
Yeah,
But
well,
I've
seen
think-
this. I think like there's one
Yeah.
that just has the holes and it's a round back, right?
Yeah. My friend's
look
dad
at
has one, and it's really cool.
Look at this neck thing. That's awesome. Yeah, I know you guys can't see it, but it's a
If you can't
It's
see
worth
it, it
looking
looks
up.
kind of like this.
Ovation guitars. Yeah. What's cool about it is that the back is rounded, so that's obviously a lot more ergonomically sound, and
Get a different tone when
it's
it's
got
rounded too.
very small holes up at the top instead of one big sound hole like most acoustic guitars. It's very nice looking.
What's really interesting, this is what I found while I was playing upright.
Mm.
There's actually a couple different styles of upright bass. There's 3 distinct ones, and for the life of me, I can't remember the names of the different styles. But the most common, the concert bass, or I think it's called the gamba style. There you can have a difference between a flatter back, or you can have a rounded back. They're all round. They're all beveled, of course, for sound.
Yeah.
But there's ones that the bevel is slighter than the other type, and I played 2 different types. I played a 1968, I think 1968K in high school, and it was more of a jazz upright, so it had a flatter back. Sounded fine. It had a lot of issues, but it was probably the best bass we had. And then there's a cheaper one, but it was more of a concert bass, so it was wider and the bevel in the back was deeper. And what I found was the sound that came out of the wider back was so much richer, like it was so much deeper
You
than
mean that
the
the
K.
back was like bowed out way more?
Yeah, way more. So the sound was, it filled a little bit more than the K did. So the K was fine, especially pizzicato was fine. But the other one, when you bowed it, and it, sadly it was a cheaper bass, so it wasn't that great. But you could tell like the sound was there.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible how just that can change so much of the instrument.
Yeah. Yeah, that's bizarre. Like I acoustic instruments fascinate me in that way. Like I'm more, when I eventually design instruments, which is what I want to do with my career, I'm going to design electric instruments because I can't figure that shit out.
It's an art. It's most definitely, and it's something that it's mostly through apprenticeship because you have to watch someone do it over and over again.
Well, that's what I was finding so fascinating about. So I've been researching a lot of South Indian instruments, and I think that non-Western cultures treat music and instruments in a lot more of a, like, I want to say ceremonial way, where, I mean, this isn't an instrument obviously, but you know how a katana, Japanese katana, has like, there's like a name for every single part of the katana. So, and there's like a sort of like a tone that goes with that name of every single part. Like every part has its own character. And so that's what I was finding about some of these Indian instruments, and like the way they construct them is very precise. Like they have a very specific way that you're supposed to build these instruments, like a sitar or a sarangi or whatever, that you're supposed to build them, which is nice because if I want to build my own, and the documentation online is very thorough about how to build them.
Yeah.
So that stuff is so cool. And like it's got to be apprenticeship. It's got to be all that's like masters or whatever building that stuff.
I always wanted a shamisen, actually.
What's that?
It's a Japanese guitar. You play it with a shell.
Really? How do you spell that?
SHAMISEN.
Oh yeah, it's coming up right here.
And the the sound on these things is so cool. It's only got 3 strings.
Yeah.
And you play it with this kind of shell-like pick. You hold it like this, and you pick it back. Like, if you can't see what I'm doing, it looks kind of like this. And you pick it back and forth.
Yeah. I've seen it played before. It's like the pick looks like a snow scraper, like a window scraper for your car.
Yeah.
Yeah, that stuff is cool. The sarangi, which is an Indian instrument I was looking at, only has 3 playable strings, but the instrument itself has like 38 strings or something like that. God. And so the other strings are these really small steel strings that basically sit along the back of the neck, and you tune them to the key of the song that you're playing in or whatever, and they're called sympathetic strings, and they vibrate with the harmonics.
Oh.
And so they make the instrument resonate in the key that you're playing in, and it's almost like a drone while you're playing.
That kind of reminds me of the hurdy-gurdy in the way, where you have like all these strings that you can play the keys to the instrument.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that thing is bizarre.
Yeah, it's very weird. The sarangi.
Wow.
I'll get a number of strings to you. But yeah, so 3 of them are playable. Okay, 3 to 4 main playing strings and a number of sympathetic strings. Okay, a number. Thanks. Fucking Wikipedia over here.
It probably depends.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why they're saying a number.
Okay, 35 to 37 sympathetic strings. So
Wow, that's that's a
And
lot.
the way you play, it doesn't have a fretboard, so how you don't push the string against a board in order to terminate the string. You sort of rest the cuticle of your finger on the string, and that terminates it.
Really?
So you go higher. It's like a cello in the way you go higher for a higher pitch and so on. But the
feel like
sympathetic
that would
strings are sitting along the fretboard, and you don't ever actually touch the fretboard. You just sort of push your finger against the side of the string to terminate it.
Interesting.
It's very bizarre, but it's a gorgeous instrument, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's very pretty.
Yeah, and the way they're built is always in this like really sort of ornamental fashion, with all these dressings and like
Yeah.
little detailing and stuff. It's really gorgeous.
It's very much a cultural instrument.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's neat. I mean, I think everywhere in the world probably has their own style and their own culture with it. I think the West is different in that sense because we've streamlined instruments so much.
Yeah, I do find myself a lot more fascinated with non-Western instruments.
Yeah, well, that's because we're so
familiar.
We're not used to those instruments.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if you look at what was I did a lot of research on the bass when I was younger, and the transition of the bass is a pretty interesting thing. So it starts out as like what we call the viola da gamba, which is like a cello.
Okay.
Except the first 5 notes on the fretboard are fretted, and the rest are open, fretless. And it had like 6 strings, and you held it between your thighs, and you bowed it like a German style. And then there's a transition in like 1800, around 1790, 1800, where they went to a 3-string upright, and that was like the standard for a while, was just 3 strings. And then they went to 4 strings, and it just stayed that way basically. But it's like you went from this like tinier little guitar-like, cello-like instrument to like this huge hulking mass.
Yeah.
And then in like the late 1800s, they tried the I can't remember what its title is, but they used it in a Beethoven symphony, I think. It's this massive bass. You have to stand on a
like an octabass.
Yeah, you have to stand on a step stool and press keys, which is just ridiculous.
I think I know what you're talking about, and the one I'm thinking of is like literally taller than a person.
Yes. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, it looks like a normal ass bass, except it's huge, and this guy's on a stool, like you said, and he's holding a lever because he literally can't reach the top of the fretboard because it's so tall.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
there's no reason for that to exist.
Yeah, that is crazy. I don't know if you saw the Rob Scallon video on the Theorbo.
I haven't watched it yet.
It's pretty interesting. So it's like
it's a Renaissance era instrument, right?
It's a Baroque instrument.
Baroque, okay.
And it's like late Baroque or something like that. And it's a lute, I guess, or it's part of the lute family, but it's got basically twice the neck length that a lute has. So it's really, really big. And the body is normal size, but the neck is super long. And so it's got strings that you can fret. And then it's got like a couple sets of bass strings that are just open.
Yeah.
You just play them open. So you have to tune them to whatever your key you're playing in, I guess.
Yeah, makes sense.
That thing is also bizarre because you're meant to play the bass strings while you at the same time that you play the upper like normal lute strings.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah, that's a little. I don't know if I could learn that. That's kind of confusing. Does he play stuff other than metal on it?
Yeah. They play some because he's like learning how to play it in the video.
Oh, okay.
So like you can only fret these strings, which are tuned like a normal lute.
Yeah.
And then the ones that are off the neck are open. That you just have to play them the way they're tuned.
Interesting.
And apparently the tuning is weird in order to keep it as a bass instrument and not a like a whatever, a soprano
The
instrument.
F holes are insane.
yeah, the holes are pretty crazy. And in order to keep it as a bass instrument, they basically like when it starts getting up, they just drop the octave down these last couple strings, so it stays in a sort of a bass register.
Interesting. Okay. I'd love to learn how to play that.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, it's a long instrument.
And the newer ones have unfolding necks, but I think the normal one the neck is just this long.
Yeah. That
Like,
sounds
I
about
think
right.
in the newer ones they have a neck that unfolds, so you can actually
I saw
fit it in
a
an average room.
I don't know what it was. It was an instrument, and it was like a guitar, electric guitar or something. And it was like a travel guitar, but you could bend the neck. Like you could split the neck in half with the strings on it, and they'd bend
Really?
around the corner.
Whoa,
It's weird.
that's weird.
It's like, man.
That's cool.
And the other thing I kind of want to talk about is the reluctance of trying new innovative instruments. Have you noticed that?
Yeah,
Like,
of course.
people are like,
People don't care.
if it's not an electric guitar, it doesn't deserve to exist. Basically, there's this cool like flute, sax, weird USB things that just came out. Like those like.
Oh, you're talking about Iwis? But
Yeah.
those been
Well,
around for a while.
I'm talking about like any new innovation. And
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like keyless or stringless guitars where there's a bunch of keys and you just like.
Oh yeah. Well, those, to be fair, they're a little. I don't know.
What?
I don't think they're very good.
Well, I mean, they may not be good, but people don't even give them a try. They just
that's true. Well, I think
basically are like, no, if it's not a guitar and it's not a bass, I don't want to see it.
I do think it's less valuable in terms of coming out with new instruments. It's less valuable to come out with an instrument that is basically just a different way to use an existing instrument.
Mm-hmm.
Like this digital guitar thing is basically a guitar, but with like touch sensitive pads instead of actual strings. And so it does come across like sort of a digital representation of something else. So something that's trying to.
Well, it's more of a keyboard. It's not really a guitar. It's meant to put effects on.
Yeah. And I
Like-
think people are less. I'm not saying it's bad. I think it's cool, but it's less. I think people are less open to the idea of a new and confusing, at first, way to control an instrument they're familiar with. And I think I think people are more open to the idea of just a new instrument entirely.
Yeah. Well, that is understandable, but how can you make? I mean,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's something that works. I'm not saying that. I think people think that instruments are going to be phased out for some reason, which I don't think is true.
Yeah.
I think there's convenience with these new ones. There's that guitar where there's no fretboard. It's just horizontal,
Frets.
and you just push down.
Floating frets.
Yeah,
Yeah,
floating
yeah.
frets, which I think is really cool.
That is cool.
And I've seen it play, and it sounds really neat. But it's never going to make it because no one's going to buy it
Yeah.
because no one wants to take the chance on it. You know what I mean?
And that's where I sort of see my challenge as an industrial designer who, I mean, my career goal is to make new instruments or to improve on old instruments. And like, I think that music is such a sort of difficult to define and like nebulous thing that comes out of you, and sort of how dare we as humans funnel that creative energy into such a specific set of control options.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you hear a gorgeous piano song, or I guess it's not a song if it doesn't have words, but when you hear a gorgeous piano piece, like there's a lot of things you feel out of that, and there's a lot of things that the pianist had put into that song, that a lot of them that's coming through to you in that song. And the fact that they had to learn how to press white buttons is such a barrier to them getting that emotion across to you. They had to spend their whole lives like learning how to control this instrument that demands that you control it in a very specific way, pressing black and white buttons and pedals to get that emotion across to you. And I think that's a shame that like so much of our music, especially in Western culture, is like basically funneled around either a set of strings that are parallel to each other or a set of buttons that that are in a line.
Yeah,
lined
like
up
it has to be. It has to be that
and
way.
like that's like the only way to make music is by pressing buttons that are lined up or by plucking strings that are parallel.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's a lot of other ways you can control instruments, and there's a lot of great examples of really crazy instruments that have sort of come and gone. The theremin, to name one, is an insane instrument that
theremin
is
really cool.
nowadays is sort of a cult favorite, but has never really been that popular.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one that's the competitor to the theremin, which eventually lost out when its creator died, the Ons Martineau, which is like, it's a keyboard, but there's also next to the keyboard there's this ring on a string,
Mm-hmm.
and you basically you put your finger through the ring and you slide it across the string, and you're getting pitch that way.
Yeah.
And there's little divots that you rest your finger in to get an exact pitch, and it's so natural because you just wiggle your finger and you get vibrato and everything.
Yeah.
And it's a gorgeous instrument, and it's a really like compelling and exciting way to control music through a ring on a string. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's crazy.
So I'm really fascinated with like what are all the different ways that you can translate your ideas about how to make music into actual music, like without having to go through this barrier of like learning how to play this instrument that's demands that you play it in a very specific way.
Right. Yeah. I mean, what are your thoughts on kind of like this new, it's not really a new movement, but the movement now of sampling existing music and remixing it and putting a new spin on it instead of creating something new, you know?
So I'm mixed about it because I've heard lots of songs that sample that I love.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of artists that sample that I like. And so like on the one hand, I think there's a difference between sampling to sort of add accents to your songs. Like there's an artist that I like called Starfucker that basically puts
Heard of them.
in some of their songs they'll take these clips from Alan Watts, who's I guess Alan Watts, I guess he's like a philosopher or something. I think he's a British guy, pretty like a British thinker or whatever. I'm just gonna look it up so I know what I'm talking about. British American philosopher. Okay, so he died in 1973. Blah blah. So they'll sample his talks and sort of like put that as an intro or as an outro or a bridge or piece or something. So he's talking over this music that they're playing. And so that I think adds a cool element. And they're not sampling another artist, so it's a little bit different. But, you know, there are also some artists who will sample like chord progressions and things from other artists. And I think it depends on how much you're adding to it, because it takes creative energy to be able to write a chord progression, right? And so you're sort of not using your creative energy by taking someone else's chord progression. But on the other hand, it does also take a lot of creative insight to know how to treat that chord progression and know what to do with it. And when producers flip samples, they often add a lot of elements to them or arrange them in certain ways that requires a lot of creative talent in order to do. So I don't think that people who sample automatically are less creative, but there are definitely uncreative ways to sample.
Yeah, for me, I'm mixed about it. I've heard some really incredible stuff that I really find interesting and profound, but maybe for me it's the ease of access. You know, that you can basically, it's been stripped down to the fact where there's a very specific way you can do it and make it sound good and people will like it, kind of thing. Where before, you know, you had to learn an instrument, you had to get together with a group of people. It depends, obviously. I'm just giving you an example. But you learn an instrument, you get together with a group of people, you'd sit there for 20 hours writing something, composing something, and producing something. And then you'd send it out as a finished product, where basically now it seems like anybody can buy some Adobe software, slap a crackle, like a record crackle, flip the intro, you know, do a couple of mutings on the sound, and basically take a whole song, slow it down, split another half of a song in there, splice it, and put a chord over it.
And make a song.
And make a song.
And I think those people have their audience. And
Yeah.
I think that if they become if people that primarily sample and don't really, I mean, for lack of a better way to explain it, like create their own music. I mean, yes, they're creating their own music, but it's in a different way, right? And I think that if those people become successful, then good for them. But I will always have more respect for an artist who does everything themselves,
Yeah.
or whatever. And
That's a good point. That's a good point.
No artist does everything themselves, right?
Right.
Lots of artists that I love and that everyone loves, have producers that
Songwriters.
contribute massively to their sound, and
Yeah.
like that most people don't even know their names and stuff. And it goes without saying that a lot of pop artists today don't even write their own songs, and that
Right.
they're songwriters.
Look at Mark Ronson.
They're credited, but they're not like, I mean, no, I wouldn't say that Max Martin is as famous as Ariana Grande, despite having written a very large portion of her songs.
Yeah.
So there's a gap there, and it's like you don't. I mean, people that like Ariana Grande don't like her for her songwriting ability. They like her for her performance and for her singing voice and
Her
for
entertainment.
for her entertainment value and for her what she provides to the stage and what she brings to an album.
Same
and
with Beyonce. Well, Beyonce is very much an entertainer as well.
Yeah.
Like she sounds great. Her singing's great. Her music, is whatever.
Yeah.
But
I'm not much
she's
of an R&B.
no, but she's entertainment. I think that's
Yeah.
another thing, and I think you're right about that for sure.
And it shouldn't go. It's not to say that people who don't write their own music or whatever it may be deserve less respect. They just deserve respect from a different audience.
Yeah.
And so, someone who doesn't write any of their own songs but who is a great performer, I mean, their fans are people that are fans of performance, not necessarily fans of songwriting.
Yeah.
So in that respect, I think that artists who sample a lot, there is creative talent that goes into knowing what to do with a sample when you get it in your hands. And the people that the respect that I give those artists is respect for their ability to flip a sample, not respect for their ability to write a chord progression or
Yeah.
whatever, because they
Their
got it from
ability to
someone
take
else.
something and
And reimagine it.
reimagine it. Yeah, I think that's a good point. You're looking at it in a different way. I also, I wanted to talk about how or why the 70s is held in such high regard, because I think a lot of maybe younger people today, when they hear their parents talk about 70s music and how great it was and how music today sucks, they're like, why? Why do you think that? And their parents don't have a good reason.
Yeah.
And I think what it is for them is that period of musical creation was so specific and so artist-centric. It was very much the band era. Like, you got together with a group of people, you sat down, you had to have some sort of, talent to play the instrument and to sound good. And then you'd have to find a record label and hope you made it. And there was just a slew of these people with incredible talent that produced some of the best music I've ever heard. And then you get to, 2000, where you get into a new genre of pop, which basically is, you write a chord, you put something catchy over it, and then you repeat it over and over again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where while there is a formula to 70s era rock, or soul, there's a way it was written. There's so much innovation within that when I think that generation looks at the music of today and they see how different it is and how you don't really necessarily need to play an instrument or sing well if you can rap, mumble rap, or you can, you know what I mean? I think for them, that's they don't understand why. And then the kids don't really. They're like, I don't get why 70s music is so great. What's the difference?
Yeah. Well, I think that with regards to pop, there's there's something to be said about, or at least probably what plays a major role is like the music industry has been around longer now than it was then. Like the music industry has sort of developed to become formulaic, and they've figured out what people want to hear and what sells well and what goes on the radio and stuff. And so, with time, any industry will become more streamlined. Yeah. And I think that's precisely what's happening as far as pop is concerned, is literally just getting more streamlined. They figured out how to make the most money with the least talent, and and granted, there are plenty of talented people in the pop industry still. Yeah. And that's not to say that they don't have talent, because they do. Yeah. But generally speaking, talent is not something that you can create or you fabricate. So talent is very valuable, and it costs a lot of money. So, it goes without saying that the most lucrative way to run the business is to figure out how to make the most money on the least talent. And I think that generally speaking, that's the direction that the pop industry is heading, is streamlining in that way. Yeah. And it is only going to keep going, probably. Right?
Yeah, it kind of sucks that you kind of have to go out of your way to find good, like, quote unquote good music. This is me saying this. For example, like the other week, I was like, man, I don't know any new rock. Like no new rock bands at all. Like it feels like that genre is just completely, it's been different. Buried.
It's different now, yeah.
So I was like, I want to find something that sounds like that, and I managed to find two bands that are newer, that are just are excellent bands, but it's like no one's ever heard of. Not no one's ever heard of them, but they're
what
not. One's the Temperance Movement.
Never heard of them.
And one's Rival Sons.
Never heard of them.
Exactly. And I think they deserve just as much respect as pop artists now have. You know what I mean? And I think it was the same way back then too, where rock artists had all the respect, and then there were people trying to innovate the field that didn't have any. Yeah.
And this goes hand in hand with just celebrity culture, which is that and just the core tenet of celebrity culture is that having the most talent does not equate to being the most popular.
Right.
It seems like it should, right? It seems like logically speaking, the richest and most popular singer in the world should ostensibly be the best singer in the world. But that's obviously not true, right? And so, their amount of talent doesn't equate to amount of popularity or amount of money or whatever. And so inevitably, artists that have lots of talent will be be overlooked in the shadow of artists that are more influential. Yeah. And that's not to say that there aren't talent. I keep saying this, but this is not to say that there aren't talented pop artists out there, because there absolutely are. Lots of artists who are extremely talented and who are doing really well on the radio
and deserve to be there.
Yeah. So it's neither here nor there, but
right.
I think that. Well, okay. So I'm reading George Orwell's 1984. I'm about halfway through it. And there's a pretty interesting passage in there, or concept in there. And mind you, I haven't finished the book, so no spoilers. But there's a concept in there where, I guess minor spoilers for the book if you haven't read it, but it's like a 70-year-old book. So there's the lower class, the proletariat, and and then there's the party, who's like this completely totalitarian and all that stuff, right? But they basically ignore the proletariat, because the proles basically live normal lives. They're just super poor. And so they're not really oppressed by the party the way the party members are. Yeah. And so, and if you've never read the book, you've probably heard about how the whole book is basically just about like super oppressive totalitarianism, right? Yeah. And so basically what the party does is they have a a facility that manufactures music for the proles. And so basically it's just, there's this really funny thing about how passage in there about how none of the prole music is like made by humans. It's made by a machine that basically randomly generates lyrics based on like some kind of algorithm. And it's bizarre how insightful that is, because it's like there are these lyrics about very vague love stories, and the way George Orwell describes the melody is very like enjoyable all around.
Right.
And so there's this part in the book where a character is listening to some random prole on the street singing one of these songs, and she's singing it like her life depends on it because she likes the song a lot. And he's thinking how sad it is that like this song was just generated by a machine for just mindless consumption by the proletariat, but it doesn't matter because she's enjoying it.
Right.
And so, I mean, this book was written in 1940 something, and he's talking about this, right?
Yeah.
And we're talking about it now.
Yeah.
So, there's an interesting concept there, which is like, I mean, that music is literally made by a machine to be enjoyed by a certain class of people.
Yeah.
And that's a really dramatic way of putting our pop industry today. But like, you know, there are elements of that where there is absolutely a formula and a bureaucracy and an industry around making music that's specifically designed for people to like.
Yeah, it is that genre is made to please the populace. That's what it's for.
I mean, look, music is made to be enjoyed, right? So, you know, there's nothing bad about, even though maybe it sounds a little sinister, there's nothing really bad about just making music for the purpose of enjoyment.
Yeah.
But just making music for the purpose of money, that's where you get a little fishy. It's like, you know, these people are just pumping out hits because they know it's going to make a lot of money, and then artists who legitimately innovate and who are focused on making experimental and like pushing boundaries, inevitably they're not going to be appreciated as much.
Yeah.
Even
or
if
they will
have more
be
talent.
like 20 years down the line.
Right.
Like
after they're dead or whatever.
I was just Chris and I were talking about Daft Punk and how insanely good they are, and how we're glad that they became so popular, because that genre of electro really wasn't a really big thing for a while. Like they started in the 90s, and then by early 2000s they were popular, but that genre was just not explored.
And nowadays everybody knows.
Oh yeah,
Everybody's heard of them.
yeah. And when I was younger, I was very much a stick in the mud. I grew up on 70s music and 60s music. Anything that wasn't in those two like
Wasn't worth your
decades
time.
wasn't worth my time. So my friend tried to introduce me to Daft Punk. I'm like, this is crap. And then my cousin was like, no, you need to seriously sit down, listen to them. And I was like, oh my god. You know, I had this revelation. I was like, oh Jesus, this is incredible.
Computers can make music, and so there's a similar concept with the artist Kraftwerk, which is like they're a German artist, a German group, electronica, I guess, or whatever. But they're largely considered like the grandfathers of electronic music, and they are the pioneers of electronic music. And nowadays, with most of our pop music being electronic in some way or another, they're just credited with having come up with all these pop tropes, like that you listen to their music and you're like, damn, this is so cliche, right? But it's only cliche because they came up with it first in the 70s. And what's funny about them is that they started making music in the 70s, and they were pioneers and all of that stuff. And they just won a Grammy like last year. They're like still doing stuff.
Yeah. Well, we were also talking about. Have you heard Daft Punk their song Giorgio by Moroder?
Oh, Moroder, yeah.
And it's basically
I love that
about
intro.
Giovanni Giorgio, who was one of the grandfathers of electro. This man wrote like some of the best backing tracks of the 70s for disco and soul funk artists that no one like. There's this YouTube video which is like the best of Giovanni Giorgio. I didn't know half of that stuff was by him.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it was, you know, his story is like, you know, I was living in Germany or whatever, I can't remember where, and he's like, there's a lot of discotheques
Yeah.
in there. You know,
Such
how
a good intro. I
yeah,
love the
how is I
intro in
gonna
that
break
song.
into the industry? And he would go to
Yeah.
the discotheque and he'd sleep it there.
Yeah.
Basically, and he's like, well, why don't I just use a Korg or whatever? This is
Yeah.
the sound of the future.
Yeah.
No one was doing it, and I was just creating something new, and it took off, which is so respectable.
Yeah.
You know,
I
how many
love
people can say that?
That, and then at the end, he's like,
My
most
name is-
people call me Giorgio.
Yeah,
And
my
then
name is Giovanni Giorgio. Well, most people, Giovanni
something
Giorgio.
about Giorgio, and then
Yeah.
the song sort of breaks in there.
Which is in the song itself.
The song's
is
good.
Fantastic.
And so I want to show you something funny.
Yeah,
And,
please.
So this is a song, and mind you, okay, so I'm gonna roast Childish Gambino a little bit. Mind you, I do have a lot of respect for Childish Gambino, and this album is a really good album. But so I'm gonna play a song called "Riot" by Childish Gambino, and I thought of this when we were talking about sampling. But listen
Okay.
to this for a second, if it'll come on.
Okay. Wow.
So it's
It's
super
a lot
funky.
of yeah, super funky.
I dig it.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Very getting a lot of like, I don't know, like James Brown kind of.
Yeah, it's super funky, right?
yeah.
And then listen to the chord.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I'll skip a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Now we're gonna listen to a song, and so let me just add some background. Okay, Riot came out in
Is it 2017?
Let's see, a couple years ago, probably.
2016.
Came out in 2016.
Okay.
Okay, and then the song I'm about to play for you came out in 1975. Okay.
Oh man, I know this song. All right, getting some funk.
Okay, so we got
Yeah.
the intro,
Some funk.
and then wait till the
Yeah.
main part. So,
Uh-huh.
so I think we're hearing the similarity here.
Yeah.
So
Very similar.
a friend of mine showed this to me.
Yeah.
It is basically the same in a lot of parts. But you can't,
Yeah.
it's hard to tell, but in some parts they're almost exactly the same.
Yeah.
And so together, come on, stomp your feet. Okay, that's a good song.
Yeah.
Anyway, my point there is that so Childish Gambino has said that he was influenced a lot by Funkadelic. That second song was by Funkadelic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know the details on whether he sampled them or whatever, but I mean that to me, that stuff to me is kind of funny in a way because
Mhm.
it just shows the way that influence. I mean, there's a very fine line between influence and like copying, and I won't say that
Yeah.
that's copying or anything because they do sound different. But it's
that theme is the theme of the song too.
Yeah.
Is very similar.
yeah, and but I'll tell you what, if I wrote Riot, the Childish Gambino one, I wouldn't be that satisfied with it, knowing that it was so similar to
Something else.
a previous one.
Yeah.
But that's just the way I write music, and I won't say that
No,
my
I
music
respect
is
that, though.
terribly original either. But it's very difficult to create
Well-
music that's thought of as original.
Really, there is no such thing as original
yeah, yeah.
music. You know what I mean? Like things are you're borrowing things from. I mean, it's different when Elvis Presley is literally stealing songs by black people.
Yeah.
You know
that's different. Yeah,
that's a little different. But when you take some influence from Stevie Wonder, you take some influence from Prince. I'm shouting at the key here.
Yeah.
You're taking.
and you sort of synthesize that.
You
into-
synthesize it and you make it your own. That's original music to me.
Yeah.
Not everybody can be. Oh God, what's the name of that album? Hold on one sec.
Not everyone can be Radiohead. I'm kidding. God.
Don't start this. All right, so library.
I'm a big fan of Radiohead, by the way.
No way.
Yeah.
Robin
And I realize that
is a big fan
that
of
probably
Radiohead.
explains a lot of my pretentious attitudes towards music. I'm trying to be less pretentious about music, to be fair.
Captain Beefheart Trout Mask replica. Do you mind playing a little bit of the
play
first
it.
song.
Yeah.
This is probably
What do I write?
Captain Beefheart. This is probably some of the most original music I've heard, and there is actually something, something really enjoyable about. Go down.
Which song?
Do they not have? Do not have Trout Mask Replica?
Oh, Trout Master. Hold on.
There it is.
Here we go. Okay, so I'll play this.
Yeah. This is true, like I would say, original stuff.
When is this from?
Like 1969 or some shit. But this isn't the opener.
Right.
This is This is actually Trout Mask Replica.
Yeah.
Here, look up the actual album on.
Oh, the album. Okay.
Yeah, look it up on YouTube.
Let me
'Cause I don't
get
think it's
right.
on here. Maybe it is. I don't know.
Oh, they got a lot of albums.
Yeah, they were actually like a pretty big, like no one respects them because Trout Mask Replica did not do very well. Here, just look it up on
Yeah, I'm
YouTube.
gonna go on YouTube.
But like, if you hear it for the first time, most people are like, "This is not music. Like, this is trash." But if you actually listen to what they're doing, yeah, there it is. Make sure you pause the other one. But
Sorry, this is an ad, guys.
yeah, sorry guys, this is an
Groupon
ad for
sponsor
Groupons.
us.
Oh, we got another
nice.
ad. Allegra.
Allegra.
Sponsor us, guys.
Hit us up, dude.
Hit us
That's
up, Allegra.
free. It's free.
Okay, here we go.
Love the album cover.
Yeah. So it is all over the place.
Yeah.
I
love it. That's awesome.
But what they're doing is they're all playing a different song. They soloed each instrument and they layered it on top of itself.
Yeah.
But they're playing somewhat in the same key, so it actually works to a certain extent.
Yeah, it's sort of this like, it becomes this sort of cacophony
Yeah.
in a good way. I think I like it.
And you can kind of tune out the which instrument you want to
You
hear.
can you can
Yeah.
sort of zero in. And I know this may be difficult for you guys to hear through the microphone, but
You just look up Trout Mask
Yeah.
Replica Captain Beefheart.
yeah. So the artist is Captain Beefheart and his Magic Band, and the album is Trout Mask Replica. And the song we were just hearing was the opening track of that album,
Yeah.
which is called Frownland.
And this band is just starting to become like respected, because if you imagine anybody from the 70s listening to this,
absolutely.
they would immediately think this is just complete utter bullshit and trash.
Yeah.
But if you listen to it as a musician, you know, there's a lot to be appreciated in what they did. That's truly what I think is original music. They're not they may be individually taking inspiration from like a certain genre, but what they did with it is just so out there.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
they're just having fun. you
Yeah,
know?
they're having a good time.
Fuck it. And they're just making shit. And our show that we're gonna release soon about music, when we make music on the show,
Just having fun.
it's just gonna be that.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's not gonna sound like that, but it's
Right.
gonna be just us throwing stuff together.
Yeah.
That's
Get
a plug there.
get kind of like an idea for a song, and then you guys talk about it a little bit, and then you start playing it a little bit. Is that how we're?
Exactly.
Are you guys writing
We're
lyrics
gonna
and
start
stuff?
from it. I don't
or-
know. We'll do whatever.
Okay.
And you're obviously welcome to come. I'll tell you when we're doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that'll about wrap us up for today.
Yeah.
So that's about an hour. Nice. And I'm sorry for all you guys who don't give a shit about music, because we just talked about music for the entire show.
Yeah. We're big fans of music. We're musicians.
This is what happens when Ali's not here to stop us.
Yeah.
Okay, because Ali is... Well, Ali is
No,
into
he's
music.
into
loves
music. I feel like he would be kind of into
All right,
this.
fair. He probably wouldn't have talked... He probably would have stopped around the instrument discussion.
Yeah.
But so I want to close us out with this, and I'll fade us down during this. But I want to show you this instrument, and I thought of this when we were talking about new instruments coming out. So this is an instrument built by a company called Soma, a Russian company,
Okay.
and they make weird instruments.
Mhm.
And this instrument is called Divina And it's
Okay.
I think this video is from their like Kickstarter. Like they're gonna try and get funds to build this.
All right.
It's basically 2 pieces of wood screwed together at a right angle,
Okay.
and with a neodymium magnet pickup inside the neck,
Oh, okay.
and 1 string,
All right.
and it's bowed, and it's meant to basically emulate some of the sounds of South Indian bowed instruments in a more sort of modern electric way.
Awesome. I want to hear this.
And so, thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you again next week,
Yeah.
and
Bye-bye.
have a good time. And listen to this gorgeous piece of shit. Oh, sorry. Hold up. Oh, he's gonna put it together
He's gotta
first. I'm gonna
take it
skip
out of his
through.
ice tube.
So it comes in this architect tube thing. So we'll watch him build it really quickly. So it's just this stuff, right? Okay. That's it.
Oh.
So, okay. All right. Have a good week, guys.